Welcome to The Critique. We're diving into the reflective life, a mirror's transformative power today.
Yes, looking at how presentation changes impact. It explores mirrors, reflection, a story, and language.
Right. Let's get straight into it. The first point is about enhancing the introduction's hook and thematic unity.
Mm-hmm. The intro you have is very informative. It really lays out what's coming.
It does. It details the story, the collocations, the vocabulary, almost like a roadmap.
And that's the potential weakness, isn't it? A roadmap is clear, sure, but does it immediately grab you? Does it create intrigue?
Exactly. By listing everything, it sort of preempts the discovery. It tells the what, but maybe misses the why. You know?
Yeah, that immediate, why should I keep listening feeling? It touches on that core essence and engagement idea we often discuss. If the opening doesn't hook them,
They might tune out, even if the rest is great. So the suggestion here isn't about hiding the content,
no, not at all.
but framing it differently. Maybe pose a really intriguing question right at the start, or a paradox about mirrors.
Something that creates a central thread. A mystery, perhaps, that the story and the language sections then help to unravel together.
Right. Instead of just separate segments. So rather than saying, today we'll cover A, B, and C,
You could start with something more evocative, like, what if that mirror you glance in every day holds more than just your reflection? What if it holds a kind of power, even shaping the words we use?
ooh, I like that. It sets up a bigger question immediately. Connects the object, the self-perception, and the language right from the beginning.
It promises a journey of discovery rather than just a list of topics. You could even use maybe a surprising fact or a quick historical tidbit about mirrors to achieve that.
Yeah, something unexpected that makes you rethink the familiar. Mirrors, simple glass, or portals to something deeper. And how does our language reflect that? That kind of vibe.
Exactly. Open that door to wonder. Don't just hand out the itinerary.
Okay, good. Let's move to the second point. This one's about strengthening the transition, particularly between Emma's story and the linguistic parts.
Right. The story itself about Emma and the mirror seems quite powerful and personal based on the material.
It really sets a reflective, maybe even emotional tone.
But then the shift to the collocations and vocabulary, it feels a bit abrupt, like changing gears quite suddenly.
That's the weakness identified. It's like moving from this deep personal narrative straight into a more, almost instructional section.
And the link between them isn't explicitly made. They're both about mirrors, obviously, but how does the language part build on the story? How does it serve the episode's bigger theme about transformation?
Without that clear bridge, they risk feeling like disconnected blocks of information. You lose that nice flow, that structure and flow we aim for.
And potentially some of the emotional resonance you built up with the story.
So the suggestion is to craft a much more deliberate transition, one that explicitly connects the insights from Emma's experience to why these specific words and phrases matter.
To position the language not just as tools, but as maybe ways to deepen the understanding that the story sparked.
Exactly. Make them feel like a natural extension of that reflective journey.
So for instance, coming out of Emma's story, you could say something like, Emma's journey shows how looking in the mirror became this profound act of self-awareness. But how do we even talk about that? How do we find the words for such a personal experience?
Yeah, that sets it up perfectly.
Well, our language actually gives us clues. Think about phrases like look in the mirror versus stand before the mirror. And then you can introduce the collocations, showing how they take on richer meaning after hearing the story.
It connects the feeling to the function of the words. And you could do the same for the vocabulary, right?
Absolutely. Frame it not just as definitions, but as offering the nuances needed to describe what Emma, and maybe the listener, sees or feels.
Like Emma's mirror showed her layers. These words like image, reflection, perspective, maybe even illusion help us articulate those layers in our own reflections.
It keeps the thread going. It shows the language as a way to engage more deeply with the themes, not just learned vocabulary. It reinforces the purpose.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Seamless integration.
Right. Now, the third area we looked at was about deepening the so what for the listener, particularly around those linguistic sections.
Okay, and you mentioned liking the clarity there. The collocations and vocabulary are presented very clearly. Useful stuff.
Definitely useful, yes. The clarity is good. But the question became, is it just useful information or could it be more?
Meaning,
Is there a risk that by simply presenting the words, we miss a chance to push the listener towards more personal application? Towards connecting it back to that core idea of a reflective life?
I see. So the weakness isn't the information itself, but maybe how it's delivered. It's informative, but perhaps not fully transformative?
Exactly. It could empower the listener more actively. We provide the tools, the words, but do we encourage them to actually use them for their own reflection? This really hits on audience alignment and significance.
We want them to integrate it, not just passively receive it.
Precisely. So the suggestion is to embed a clear call to action or maybe a reflective prompt directly within those sections.
Interesting. So not just at the very end of the episode, but right there, with the language bits?
Yeah. Invite them to pause and think, to apply these words or phrases to their own lives, right then and there.
That turns passive learning into something much more active, doesn't it? Makes it stick.
It really does. It reinforces the episode's main message on a personal level.
Could you give an example of how that might sound?
Sure. So after you present the collocations, instead of just moving on, you could add a prompt like, okay, we've heard how Emma learned to stand before the mirror differently. Take a moment now and consider, how do you usually look in the mirror? Is it just functional, or could thinking about these phrases change that daily ritual for you?
Oh, nice. It directly challenges them to connect it to their own habits.
And similarly with vocabulary, after defining, say, perspective or illusion in the context of mirrors, you could ask, when you catch your reflection, which of these words feels most relevant to what you see or seek? Is it about confirming an image, finding symmetry, or maybe confronting an illusion? Why does that particular word resonate?
That's powerful. It shifts the focus from just understanding the definition to personal introspection, using the word itself.
It makes the language a catalyst for their own reflection, fully delivering on the promise of the reflective life. It moves beyond information to potential insight.
Love that. Turning information into a tool for personal exploration.
That's the goal, right? Maximum impact.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the main points of this critique.
Sounds good.
First, we talked about the introduction. The key takeaway was to move beyond just a roadmap and instead hook the listener immediately with a compelling, overarching question or theme about mirrors.
Right. Create that intrigue from the very start, making all the following sections feel like they're contributing to answering that central question.
Second, we focused on transitions, specifically bridging the gap between the personal story and the linguistic segments.
Yeah, making sure that shift feels natural and purposeful, showing how the language tools directly enhance or articulate the themes raised in the narrative, ensuring a smooth, unified flow.
And finally, the third point was about deepening the listener's engagement, especially within the collocation and vocabulary sections.
Not just presenting the information, but actively prompting the listener to apply these linguistic tools to their own lives through embedded calls to action or reflective questions.
Turning passive learning into active personal exploration.
Exactly. By strengthening that initial hook, smoothing out the transitions with clear thematic links, and challenging the listener to apply the concepts personally.
The whole piece becomes much more resonant and impactful. It moves beyond simply being informative to potentially being transformative for the listener.
Which seems to be the core intention behind exploring a reflective life.
Absolutely. So we really encourage you to take these suggestions, play around with them, and see how they reshape the piece.
And please do submit it again. We'd be very interested to see how it evolves. We're here to help you make it as strong as it can be.